The housekeeper moved silently through the room, serving dinner to these dangerous men. She'd perfected invisibility over 18 months, the art of being present but unnoticed. Then Charles Finch made his mistake. He watched her too closely and whispered in Italian, "That one is irresistible." Nugent knows how to choose his staff. The Mafia boss's response was instant. "She's mine." Not his staff, not his employee, mine. Every man at that table heard the claim. Every man understood its weight. What they didn't know? The housekeeper speaks fluent Italian. She heard everything. And the war that's about to erupt? She's right at the center, holding secrets, making choices, and discovering that being claimed might be the most dangerous and most honest thing that's ever happened to her. But before we dive into this story, I would like to mention here that my mom playfully teased me saying, "I can't hit my target subscribers, so you can prove her wrong by you going to hit that subscribe button right now." As this is very important to keep me going here because what you're about to witness is a Mafia boss, accidentally revealing feelings he didn't know he had, and the chaos that follows is intense. Trust me, you don't want to miss how one impulsive sentence transforms an invisible housekeeper into the most protected and most targeted woman in New York. Now, let's begin. Freddie Nugent's penthouse on the Upper East Side is a fortress disguised as luxury marble floors, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park, art worth more than most people earn in a lifetime. It's the home of a man who controls half of New York's underground economy with strategic brilliance and calculated violence. But every morning at 6 a.m., before the meetings and the threats and the money, there's a moment of quiet. And in that quiet, Kelsey Bordner, the penthouse housekeeper, moves through the space like a ghost. Invisible, essential, never acknowledged beyond polite nods. She knows things she shouldn't. Which phone calls make Freddie tense. Which visitors carry concealed weapons. Which nights he doesn't sleep at all. She speaks fluent Italian learned from her grandmother, so she understands the conversations Freddie's men have thinking no one's listening. But Kelsey has her own burdens. A teenage brother, Dylan, with a heart condition that requires expensive medication. Every paycheck goes to keeping him alive. She can't afford to lose this job, no matter how dangerous the employer. So when Freddie hosts a business dinner for the 5 families, a delicate negotiation between rival territories, Kelsey does what she always does. Serves wine, clears plates, remains invisible, until Charles Finch, Freddie's biggest rival, a man who controls the docks and wants Freddie's territory, watches Kelsey move across the room and whispers in Italian to his associate, "Quella è irresistibile." That one is irresistible. He doesn't know Kelsey speaks Italian. He definitely doesn't know Freddie heard him. And when Freddie responds instinctively, possessively, without thinking, "Lei è mia," she's mine, everything changes. The room freezes. The words hang in the air like a declaration of war. Because in their world, claiming a woman in front of witnesses isn't casual. It's ownership, protection, a line drawn that can't be uncrossed. And Freddie Nugent just claimed his housekeeper. This is the story of how one sentence triggered a war, exposed hidden feelings, and transformed an invisible woman into the most dangerous piece on the board. Welcome to a love story that begins with an accident and ends with revolution. Kelsey Bordner had perfected the art of being invisible. At 6 a.m. every morning, she entered Freddie Nugent's penthouse using her key card, moved through the space like a ghost brewing espresso, organizing the day's papers, arranging fresh flowers in the foyer, all before Freddie emerged from his bedroom. She'd been his housekeeper for 18 months. In that time, she'd learned his routines with military precision. Black coffee at 6:30, breakfast at 7, usually just toast and fruit, morning meetings, starting at 8. She knew which calls made him tense, which visitors required the good scotch, which nights he didn't sleep at all. But Freddie Nugent barely knew she existed. That was fine. Kelsey preferred invisible. Invisible was safe. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A text from Dylan, her 15-year-old brother. Medication refill today. $380. Can you transfer? Kelsey closed her eyes briefly. $380 she didn't have. Again. Dylan had a congenital heart defect that required expensive medication to manage. No insurance. Their mother had died when Dylan was 10, leaving them with nothing. Kelsey had been supporting them both since she was 19, working multiple jobs, sending every spare dollar to keep her brother alive. The housekeeper position paid well, very well actually. But medical bills ate everything. "I'll handle it," she texted back. She'd figure it out. She always did. At 6:32 a.m., Freddie Nugent emerged from his bedroom wearing a silk robe and an expression that suggested he'd slept poorly. "Morning, Mr. Nugent," Kelsey said quietly, setting his espresso on the kitchen island. He nodded his usual acknowledgement and picked up his phone, already diving into work. Kelsey returned to her tasks. This was their routine. Parallel existence in the same space, never truly interacting. Julian Reeves, Freddie's head of security, arrived at 7:15 with a file folder. "Boss, about tonight's dinner." "I know. 5 families, delicate negotiations, everyone pretending we're civilized." Freddie rubbed his eyes. "Guest list? Russo, Castellano, Wong, DeLuca, and Finch." At the last name, Freddie's expression hardened. "Charles is coming personally." "Yes. With 2 associates. He specifically requested to meet." "Of course he did. He wants the dockyard territories and thinks he can pressure me in front of witnesses." Julian glanced at Kelsey, who was wiping down counters, apparently oblivious. "Boss, should we?" "She's fine. Kelsey's been here over a year. She knows not to repeat anything she hears." Kelsey kept her expression neutral, but internally, she noted everything. Charles Finch was Freddie's biggest rival, controlling shipping routes through the city's docks, constantly pushing into Freddie's territories. The dinner tonight was a powder keg. "Quick question for you. If you worked for a mafia boss and overheard dangerous business conversations daily, would you A. Pretend you heard nothing and stay safe? B. Use the information strategically? Or C. Quit immediately?" Drop your answer in the comments because Kelsey's about to discover that staying invisible isn't always possible. By 6 p.m., the penthouse had been transformed. The dining room table, usually unused, now held settings for 9. Expensive china, crystal glasses, fresh flowers. Catering staff moved through efficiently, setting up courses. Kelsey coordinated everything, directing traffic in fluent Italian when the caterer had questions. "Perfetto," the head chef said. "Il signor Nugent, è fortunato ad averla." "Mr. Nugent is lucky to have you." "Grazie," Kelsey replied modestly. From across the room, Freddie looked up from conversation with Julian, his attention caught by the easy Italian flowing from his housekeeper. He hadn't known she spoke the language. Interesting. At 7 p.m., guests began arriving. Kelsey had changed into her formal serving uniform black dress, white collar and cuffs, hair pulled back. She looked professional, neat, invisible. She recognized most of the men from previous gatherings. Leonardo Russo, old school traditional, James Castellano, younger, aggressive, David Wong, brilliant strategist, Thomas DeLuca, diplomatic, and Charles Finch. He entered with 2 men flanking him, bodyguards disguised as associates. Charles was in his late 40s, silver at his temples, expensive suit, calculating eyes that assessed everything. Those eyes landed on Kelsey as she took coats, and she saw the brief flicker of interest before he dismissed her as staff. Good. Invisible. Dinner was tense beneath a veneer of civility. Kelsey served courses, refilled wine glasses, remained background. The conversations were coded discussions of territory management and resource allocation that were actually negotiations about drug routes, protection rackets, and profit sharing. She understood more than they realized. The Italian helped several of the men spoke it freely, assuming staff wouldn't comprehend. By the third course, discussions had grown more pointed. Charles was pushing hard on the dockyard issue. "The southern waterfront has been neutral ground for years," he argued. "It's time for clearer management." "By which you mean your management?" Freddie replied calmly. "I mean efficient management. Your focus has been elsewhere." "My focus is exactly where it needs to be." The other family heads watched the power play with interest. This was why they'd come to see how Freddie and Charles would handle the conflict. Then Kelsey crossed the room to refill Charles's wine glass. As she poured, Charles watched her move the efficient grace, The professional detachment. He leaned toward his associate and whispered in Italian, thinking no one else would understand. Quella è irresistibile. Nugent sa scegliere bene il personale. That one is irresistible. Nugent knows how to choose his staff. Kelsey's hand didn't shake, but her pulse spiked. She'd been objectified before came with working in wealthy households, but never in a room full of dangerous men. Freddie heard. His wine glass stopped halfway to his mouth. His eyes locked on Charles, then flicked to Kelsey, then back to Charles. Every man at the table recognized the shift, the sudden tension that came before violence. And Freddie responded without thinking. In Italian, his voice sharp and possessive. Lei è mia. She's mine. The room went absolutely silent. Kelsey froze. The wine bottle trembled slightly in her hand. Because everyone at that table understood what Freddie had just done. He'd claimed her. Publicly. In front of witnesses from 5 families. In their world, that wasn't casual. That was ownership. Protection. A line drawn. Charles's smile was slow and dangerous. I didn't realize your staff held such personal value, Freddie. Freddie set down his glass with controlled precision. Now you do. The rest of dinner passed in brittle tension. Kelsey finished serving dessert with hands that wanted to shake, but didn't. She was acutely aware of every eye that tracked her movement, assessing, calculating, recognizing her new status. She'd gone from invisible to visible in one sentence, and she wasn't sure if that was protection or a target. When the guests finally left at 11 p.m., Kelsey began cleaning up. Her mind raced, trying to process what had just happened. Kelsey. She turned. Freddie stood in the dining room doorway, still in his suit, his expression unreadable. Come to my office. We need to talk. It wasn't a request. Freddie's office was all dark wood and leather, the room of a man who controlled an empire. Kelsey had cleaned it hundreds of times but never actually been in it like this. As someone he was addressing directly. Julian was there too, looking grim. Sit, Freddie said. Kelsey sat in the chair across from his desk, her uniform suddenly feeling like a costume. Freddie poured 3 glasses of whiskey, handed one to Julian, one to Kelsey, kept one for himself. You speak Italian. Yes, my grandmother taught me when I was young. Why didn't you mention that when you were hired? You didn't ask. And it seems safer not to advertise. Smart. Freddie took a drink. Then you heard what Charles said. Yes. And you heard my response. Yes. Do you understand what I just did? Kelsey met his eyes gray, intense, surprisingly troubled. You claimed me. In their world, that means I'm under your protection. It also means I've become leverage. Freddie looked surprised. You understand the politics. I've worked for you 18 months, Mr. Nugent. I hear things. I'm not deaf or stupid. Julian made a sound that might have been a laugh. I like her. This isn't funny, Freddie snapped. I just painted a target on her. Charles now knows she matters to me. That makes her valuable for protection or for pressure. Then why did you say it? Kelsey asked quietly. Freddie was silent for a long moment. Because the way he looked at you like you were an object, something to acquire, made me furious. And I responded without thinking. With honesty? Kelsey suggested. Freddie's eyes sharpened on her face. What do you mean? I mean, maybe you didn't claim me just to shut Charles up. Maybe some part of you meant it. The air in the room shifted. Julian cleared his throat. I'll check the security feeds, he said, excusing himself diplomatically. When they were alone, Freddie set down his glass and leaned forward. You're right, he said. Part of me did mean it. You've been in my home every day for 18 months, and I've noticed you more than I should. The way you move through the space, how you handle problems quietly, your competence. You were never as invisible as you thought. Kelsey's breath caught. Mr. Nugent, Freddie, if I just claimed you in front of the 5 families, we're past formalities. Freddie, she corrected. What happens now? Now we deal with consequences. Effective immediately, you're not working alone. Julian assigns you personal security. You don't go anywhere without reporting your location. Anyone approaches you, anyone tries to use you against me, you tell me immediately. And my job changes. You're no longer the housekeeper that's too vulnerable. You're now my personal assistant. Higher salary, More visible position. Legitimate reason to be in my world. It provides better protection. Kelsey should refuse. Should walk away from this dangerous complication, but she thought about Dylan's medication bills, about the costs piling up, about how Freddie had just offered her protection and a salary increase without asking for anything in return. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "Because I made you a target. That makes you my responsibility. And if I want to leave?" Freddie's expression was carefully neutral. "Then I'll provide severance and security until the situation calms. But I hope you'll stay." "Why?" "Because you're good at what you do. And because," he paused, "because I don't want you to leave." It was the most honest thing he'd said. Kelsey took a drink of whiskey, her first ever, and felt it burn down her throat. "I'll stay. On one condition." "Name it." "You tell me the truth. About your world, about the dangers, about what being yours actually means. No more invisible. If I'm in this, I'm in it with full information." Freddie smiled slightly. "Deal." The next 2 days passed in tense adjustment. Kelsey had a security detail now, a quiet man named Owen who followed her at a discreet distance. Her duties shifted from cleaning to administrative work, managing Freddie's calendar, screening calls, handling correspondence. It was strange being visible. People noticed her now. Staff deferred to her. Business associates greeted her by name. And Freddie. Freddie talked to her. Real conversations about books, about news, about opinions on business decisions. He asked her input and actually listened. It was terrifying and thrilling in equal measure. On Thursday afternoon, Kelsey was reviewing contracts in Freddie's office when her phone rang. "Dylan's school. Emergency contact. Miss Bordner? Your brother collapsed during gym class. We've called an ambulance. They're taking him to St. Vincent's Hospital." The world tilted. "What happened? Is he conscious?" The paramedics said possible cardiac episode. "You need to get there immediately." Kelsey was already grabbing her coat, her bag, her mind spiraling with terror. Dylan's heart, his medication. Oh God, what if? She ran into Freddie in the hallway. He was on a phone call but stopped immediately when he saw her face. "What's wrong?" "My brother, his heart. Collapsed at school. They're taking him to St. Vincent's. I have to go." Freddie ended his call mid-sentence. "Julian, get the car. Now. I can take a cab." "No. You're panicking. You're terrified. And you're not doing this alone. We're going together." "Freddie, you don't have to." "Yes, I do. Let's go." "Okay." Quick pause, because I need everyone to appreciate that a literal Mafia boss just dropped everything to rush a housekeeper's brother to the hospital. If you're watching this level of protective romance and you're not subscribed, I'm judging you. Hit that button right now because what happens next is intense. Also comment, is Freddie's protectiveness romantic or just guilt from the claim? Discuss. Okay, back to the emergency. The drive to St. Vincent's took 20 minutes that felt like hours. Kelsey sat rigid in the back of Freddie's car, her hands clenched in her lap, breathing through panic. Freddie sat beside her, making rapid phone calls. "This is Freddie Nugent. I'm bringing someone to St. Vincent's ER. Dylan Bordner, 15 years old. Cardiac episode. I want your best cardiac team ready when we arrive. Money is not an issue." Kelsey stared at him. "You can't just..." "I can. And I am." He ended the call and took her hand, warm, steady, grounding. "He's going to be okay. You don't know that." "No, but we're going to make sure he has the best possible care." When they arrived, Freddie walked Kelsey directly through the ER entrance, bypassing all normal protocols. A doctor met them immediately, clearly briefed on who was asking. "Miss Bordner, your brother is being stabilized now. It appears his heart medication wasn't managing the condition adequately. We're running tests, but he may need surgical intervention." "Surgery?" Kelsey's voice cracked. "How much? I don't have insurance." The doctor glanced at Freddie, who nodded once. "All costs are covered," the doctor said. "Mr. Nugent has arranged everything. We'll take excellent care of Dylan." Kelsey turned to Freddie, tears streaming down her face. "I can't afford." "You're not affording anything. I'm handling this." "That's not I can't accept." "You're not accepting a favor. I'm doing this because I want to." Freddie's voice was firm. Because your brother matters to you, which means he matters to me. Kelsey broke down the terror, the relief, the gratitude, all overwhelming her at once. Freddie pulled her against his chest right there in the hospital hallway, letting her sob into his expensive suit while doctors and nurses pretended not to notice. He's going to be okay, Freddie murmured against her hair. I promise. We'll make sure of it. The surgery took 6 hours. Freddie stayed the entire time. He sat beside Kelsey in the surgical waiting room, bringing her coffee she didn't drink and food she couldn't eat, making calls to Julian but never leaving. His presence steady and unwavering. When Dr. Eleanor Nash, the best cardiac surgeon in New York, personally recruited by Freddie, finally emerged with good news, Kelsey nearly collapsed with relief. The surgery went perfectly. We've implanted a pacemaker and repaired the valve damage. Dylan will need ongoing monitoring, but he should make a full recovery. Can I see him? Kelsey asked. Once he's in recovery, another hour. When the doctor left, Kelsey turned to Freddie. Thank you. I don't have words. You don't need words. Freddie's hand cupped her face gently. This isn't a debt, Kelsey. This is what you do for people who matter. I matter to you? Yes. More than I realized until tonight. They held each other's gaze for a long moment, something fundamental shifting between them. 3 days after Dylan's surgery, he was recovering well. The pacemaker was functioning perfectly, and doctors were optimistic about his long-term prognosis. Kelsey visited every day after work, usually with Owen shadowing her at a discreet distance. On Thursday evening, she was leaving the hospital late. Dylan had fallen asleep during her visit, and she'd stayed longer than planned. The parking garage was nearly empty. Kelsey's heels echoed on concrete as she walked toward where Owen had parked the car. A figure stepped out from between vehicles. Kelsey's hand immediately moved toward her phone, the panic button Julian had programmed that would alert security instantly. Miss Bordner. Don't be alarmed. The man was in his 30s, well-dressed, completely non-threatening in appearance. But Kelsey's instincts screamed danger. Do I know you? No. But I have a message from Mr. Charles Finch. Every alarm bell in Kelsey's head started ringing. I don't know any Mr. Finch. He knows you. And he has a proposition that could benefit you greatly. I'm not interested. Kelsey started to walk past him. The man stepped into her path. $50,000, Miss Bordner. That's what Mr. Finch is offering for simple information. Mr. Nugent's schedule, business associates, security protocols. Easy money for someone in your position. Kelsey's blood ran cold. He was asking her to spy on Freddie. Her hand found her phone in her pocket. She pressed the voice recorder app, then the panic button simultaneously. Let me make sure I understand, Kelsey said loudly. Clearly. For the recording. You're offering me $50,000 to betray my employer and provide information to Charles Finch. The man's eyes narrowed. It's a business opportunity. And what happens if I refuse? Mr. Finch would be disappointed. And when Mr. Finch is disappointed, accidents happen. Your brother is in a hospital right now, recovering nicely, I hear. Would be a shame if something went wrong with his care. Equipment malfunctions, medication mix-ups, hospitals can be dangerous places. Kelsey's terror transformed into cold fury. Are you threatening my 15-year-old brother? She asked, still recording. The man realized his mistake too late. Wait, I didn't mean. I'm refusing your offer. And if you or Charles Finch come near me or Dylan again, everyone will know what you tried here. Kelsey walked past him toward the car. Owen was already running toward her, having received the panic alert. Miss Bordner, are you hurt? I'm fine, but we need to get to Freddie. Now. They made it to the penthouse in 15 minutes. Freddie met them at the door. Julian beside him. Both men's faces grim. Who? Freddie asked, simply. Kelsey played the recording. The silence that followed was absolute. The kind of silence that preceded violence. When the recording ended, Freddie's expression was utterly controlled, which somehow made him more terrifying. Julian, double security on Dylan's hospital room. No one gets in without explicit authorization. Get our legal team. I want this recording authenticated and multiple copies made. He turned to Kelsey, his hands checking her over for injuries, despite knowing she wasn't hurt. Did he touch you? No. Just talked. You did exactly right. Freddie's hands framed her face. Recording him was brilliant. This gives us leverage. Leverage for what? To end this without bloodshed. Charles just violated every rule we operate under, approaching you directly, threatening a civilian, attempting to compromise protected personnel. The commission will crucify him for this. Julian made calls while Freddie pulled Kelsey into his office, poured her whiskey, made her drink it. You can't go home, Freddie said. Charles knows where you live. Until this is resolved, you're staying here. In the penthouse, guest suite, full privacy, your own space, but behind security. This isn't negotiable. Kelsey knew she should refuse. Knew accepting meant stepping irrevocably deeper into Freddie's world. But she was also exhausted, terrified for Dylan, and frankly done pretending she could handle this alone. On my terms, she said. Name them. I'm not your prisoner. I can leave when I want. My salary triples because this job just got significantly more dangerous. And you don't lie to me about threats, about plans, about what you're doing to handle Charles? Freddie's expression softened slightly. Agreed. With one addition, you let me protect you. That means following security protocols, checking in regularly, and trusting that I won't let anything happen to you or Dylan. Deal. They shook hands, a formal agreement that felt significant beyond the words. Living in Freddie Nugent's penthouse changed everything. Kelsey had the guest suite, a beautiful space with its own bathroom, sitting area, and privacy. But proximity to Freddie was unavoidable. They had breakfast together. She saw him without his armor, rumpled from sleep, reading glasses on, surprisingly vulnerable in the early morning quiet. He saw her in ways he never had when she was just the housekeeper, her humor, her intelligence, the way she thought strategically about problems. Small moments accumulated like evidence. Monday morning, Kelsey made coffee out of habit. Freddie appeared, already showered but not yet dressed in his suit armor. You don't have to do that, he said. You're not the housekeeper anymore. I know, but I like making coffee. It's normal. Nothing about this situation is normal. No. Kelsey handed him a cup. But maybe normal is overrated. Tuesday evening, Kelsey was cooking dinner, another habit from her old role. She cut her hand with a knife, cursed quietly. Freddie appeared immediately. What happened? Just a cut. I'm fine. Let me see. He took her hand gently, examined the cut, led her to the sink to rinse it. His touch was careful, professional, but lingered longer than necessary. You need to be more careful, he murmured, wrapping her hand in a clean towel. It's just a small cut. I don't care. You matter. Their eyes met. Something electric passed between them. Wednesday, 2 a.m. Kelsey couldn't sleep, too much adrenaline, too much worry about Dylan. She found Freddie on the terrace, whiskey in hand, staring at the city lights. Can't sleep either? She asked. Occupational hazard. He gestured to the chair beside him. Join me? They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching Manhattan sparkle. What happens after this is over? Kelsey finally asked. After Charles is handled, after Dylan is recovered. What then? What do you want to happen? Kelsey looked at him, really looked at the man who'd saved her brother, protected her without question, shown her more care in 2 weeks than most people had in her entire life. I don't know. But I don't want to go back to being invisible. You were never invisible to me, Freddie said quietly. I just didn't know how to acknowledge it. And now I'm done pretending I don't care. The admission hung between them, dangerous, honest, changing everything. Thursday morning, Julian found them having breakfast together, laughing over something ridiculous in the news. He looked between them, the easy intimacy, the way they'd unconsciously moved closer, and smiled. Boss, the commission meeting is set for Friday. All 5 families confirmed. Freddie's expression shifted immediately to business. Good. Make sure the recording is distributed beforehand. I want everyone to hear Charles's man threaten a civilian before we even walk in the room. Already done. After Julian left, Kelsey touched Freddie's hand. What happens at this meeting? Charles gets held accountable. The commission doesn't tolerate threats against civilians. It draws too much law enforcement attention. He'll be punished, probably lose the contested territories. And then I'm safe? Then you're safe. I promise. Real talk. Kelsey and Freddie have gone from employer-employee to basically living together in 2 weeks. Is this moving too fast, or is this exactly how Mafia romances should work? Drop your opinion in the comments. Team slow burn or team we've got killers to deal with, so speed it up? Let me know. Friday arrived with the weight of consequence. The commission meeting was held at an exclusive club in Midtown Neutral Territory, heavily secured. Traditional location for inter-family disputes. Freddie wore his most expensive suit, armor, and statement in one. Kelsey wore a professional dress, her role as his assistant now official. "You don't have to come," Freddie said as they prepared to leave. "Yes, I do. This is about me. I should be there. It could get ugly. I can handle ugly." Freddie smiled slightly. "I'm starting to believe that." The meeting room was elegant and intimidating, dark wood, leather chairs, portraits of past commission leaders on the walls. Present, the 5 family heads: Leonardo Russo, Commissioner, James Castellano, David Wong, Thomas DeLuca, and Charles Finch, plus their respective counselors and security. Kelsey sat behind Freddie, officially his assistant, quietly taking notes. Charles looked smug, clearly believing he'd weathered the political storm. Commissioner Russo called the meeting to order. "We're here regarding allegations that Charles Finch violated territorial and civilian protection protocols. Freddie, present your case." Freddie stood, projecting calm authority. 3 days ago, an associate of Charles Finch approached my personal assistant in a hospital parking garage. He offered her $50,000 to provide intelligence on my operations, business associates, and security protocols. When she refused, he explicitly threatened her 15-year-old brother, a patient in that hospital recovering from cardiac surgery. Charles immediately protested. "That's a fabrication. It's recorded." Freddie nodded to Julian, who distributed tablets to each family head. The room filled with the sound of the recording: Charles's man making the offer, issuing the threat, invoking Charles's name repeatedly. The commissioners' faces darkened. This recording was authenticated by 3 independent audio forensic experts. Freddie continued. Charles's associate used his name 4 times, making clear he was acting on Charles's orders. This violates our foundational rule. Civilian family members are off limits. It also violates territorial agreements by attempting to compromise my personnel. Commissioner Russo looked at Charles with barely contained disgust. "Your defense?" Charles was sweating now, his smugness evaporated. "My associate acted without authorization. I never ordered." "Your associate explicitly invoked your name," Freddie interrupted coldly. "He claimed to be representing your interests. Either you ordered this, making you guilty of the violation, or you've lost control of your organization, making you incompetent. Choose." The trap was perfect. Commissioner Wong leaned forward. "The recording mentions the brother is 15 years old. That's a minor. A child. You threatened a child, Charles. I didn't personally. Your man. Your name. Your responsibility." Commissioner DeLuca cut him off. Commissioner Russo silenced the room with a raised hand. "The commission will deliberate." 20 minutes later, they returned with a verdict. "Charles Finch, you are found in violation of civilian protection protocols and territorial agreements. The punishment is as follows. First, the contested dockyard territories are awarded to Freddie Nugent, effective immediately. Second, you will issue public apology to Miss Bordner for the threat against her family. Third, your associate who made the threat will be expelled from all family protection. Fourth, any further violation of these rules will result in your complete removal from commission jurisdiction. This ruling is final. It was a massive loss for Charles' territory, reputation, political standing, all stripped in one meeting. As they left, Charles approached Freddie in the hallway. "You won today, but claiming that girl was your biggest mistake. Attachments make you weak." Freddie's smile was cold. "No, Charles. Attachments make you human. You should try it sometime." Back at the penthouse, Kelsey finally allowed herself to exhale. Dylan was safe. The threat was neutralized. She'd survived. Freddie poured 2 glasses of wine, handed her one. "You were brilliant today," he said. "The way you handled yourself at that meeting, calm, professional. Several commissioners commented on your composure. I was terrified. Didn't show. They stood on the terrace, watching the sunset paint Manhattan gold. What happens now? Kelsey asked. Charles is handled. Dylan's recovering. I assume I go back to, what? Being your assistant? If that's what you want. What do you want? Freddie set down his glass and turned to face her fully. I want you to stay. Not because of the claim, not because of guilt or obligation, but because somewhere between she's mine and now, it stopped being a lie. Kelsey's breath caught. Freddie, let me finish. I've spent my entire adult life keeping people at a distance. My world is dangerous, violent, no place for genuine connection, but then you invisible, capable, quietly brilliant, you were there every day. And I started noticing the way you move, the way you think, your strength. And when Charles looked at you like an object to acquire, something in me snapped. Because you're not an object. You're extraordinary. I'm a housekeeper with a GED and a mountain of medical debt. You're a woman who's kept her brother alive through impossible circumstances, who walked into a mafia boss's home and handled violent criminals with more grace than most of my associates, who recorded a bribe attempt instead of panicking, who negotiated terms for her own protection. Freddie stepped closer. You're not a housekeeper, Kelsey. You never were. You're someone who deserves better than invisibility. Tears pricked Kelsey's eyes. You really mean that? Every word. So I'm asking, not claiming, not demanding. I'm asking if you want this. Us. Whatever this could be. Kelsey thought about every reason she should say no. The danger, the complications, the fact that 2 weeks ago he was just her employer. Then she thought about how he'd saved Dylan without hesitation, how he'd protected her from Charles, how he'd looked at her this past week like she mattered, like she was visible, like she was chosen. I want this, she said, but on my terms. Always your terms. Dylan finishes high school with security but as much normalcy as possible. I go back to school, I never finish my degree. We take this slow. I'm not jumping into something because of adrenaline or gratitude. Agreed. And you don't lie to me about your business, about dangers, about what being with you actually means. I promise. One more thing. Anything. Kelsey stepped close enough that they were breathing the same air. Kiss me. Freddie smiled, genuine, warm, transformative. Yes, ma'am. The kiss was everything a first kiss should be and nothing like Kelsey expected. It wasn't tentative or testing. It was confident, thorough, claiming in the best possible way, the kind of kiss that said, I've wanted this and you're mine and I'm yours all at once. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Freddie pressed his forehead to hers. Still want to take it slow? He murmured. Kelsey laughed. Relatively slow. We can negotiate specifics. I'm very good at negotiations. I've noticed. They kissed again. The city lights sparkling around them, and Kelsey thought that maybe invisible had never been safe. Maybe visible, chosen, claimed by the right person was actually where safety lived. Okay, can we all just take a moment to appreciate that we went from accidental claim to genuine love confession to that kiss in like 8 weeks? If you're not subscribed after watching this emotional journey, I genuinely don't understand you as a person. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and comment, Team Kiss on the Terrace, or Team This Should Have Happened Sooner. Let me know. Kelsey stood in the penthouse, their penthouse now, officially reviewing foundation documents spread across the dining table. The Nugent Community Foundation, focused on healthcare access for underserved families, was her project. Freddie funded it generously, but Kelsey ran it, making decisions, directing resources, helping families like hers avoid the impossible choices she'd faced. They'd opened 3 clinics so far. The 4th was breaking ground next month. Dylan was thriving senior year of high school, college acceptances from 6 schools, still under discreet security but living as normally as possible. His pacemaker functioned perfectly, and he'd grown into a confident young man who knew his sister had saved his life multiple times. Freddie's empire was slowly transforming more legitimate businesses, strategic exits from violent operations, investments in community infrastructure. It wasn't complete transformation overnight, but it was progress. And their relationship? It was real. Complicated, yes. Built-in crisis, absolutely. But genuine in ways that surprised them both. They'd moved slowly at first, separate bedrooms, careful boundaries. But proximity and genuine affection had eroded those boundaries naturally. Now they were partners in every sense, personally, professionally, domestically. Freddie came home still in his suit but loosening his tie and found Kelsey surrounded by paperwork. "Foundation board meeting go well?" he asked, dropping a kiss on her head. "Very. We're approved for the 4th clinic. Ground breaks next month." "That's my girl." He pulled her up from the chair, wrapping arms around her waist. "How many families will that help?" "Estimated 500 annually. More if we can expand ours." "We'll make it happen." Kelsey turned in his arms, smiling up at him. "You know, when Charles called me your mistake, I think he was partially right." Freddie's expression sharpened. "How so?" "Claiming me was a mistake in the sense that you didn't mean to. But what came after? That wasn't a mistake. That was choice. Both of us choosing this. Best choice I ever made. Even though it's complicated? Especially because it's complicated. Easy things aren't worth protecting." They kissed familiar now, comfortable, but still electric with the knowledge of how they'd started. Julian appeared in the doorway, cleared his throat diplomatically. "Boss? Sorry to interrupt. The commissioner is on the phone about the waterfront expansion. Tell him I'll call back." "I'm busy." "Busy with what?" "Appreciating my life." Julian smiled. "I'll pass along the message." That evening, they had dinner with Dylan, a weekly tradition they'd established. The teenager had grown comfortable with Freddie, seeing past the Mafia boss to the man who'd saved his life and loved his sister. "NYU accepted me," Dylan announced over pasta. "Full scholarship plus living expenses." Kelsey squealed, jumping up to hug him. "Dylan, that's incredible." "It's not just the scholarship," Dylan continued. They specifically mentioned the recommendation letter from the Nugent Community Foundation. Apparently saving lives and running nonprofits impresses admissions boards. Freddie raised his wine glass. "To Dylan. And to smart kids who make their sisters proud." They toasted. And Kelsey felt overwhelming gratitude for this her family. Chosen and built from crisis. Absolutely unconventional and completely perfect. Later, in bed, Kelsey curled against Freddie's side. "Can I ask you something?" she said quietly. "Always." "Do you regret it that night at dinner? Saying what you said, everything that came after?" Freddie was quiet for a moment. "I regret that it put you in danger. I regret that Charles threatened Dylan. But do I regret claiming you? No, because it forced me to acknowledge something I'd been denying for months." "Which was?" "That I was already yours. I just needed Charles to make me say it out loud." Kelsey pressed a kiss to his chest. "For the record, I was already yours too. I just didn't know if I was allowed to admit it. You're allowed everything with me. Honesty, anger, fear, joy, all of it. That's what partnership means." "I love you," Kelsey said. She'd said it before, but it never stopped feeling significant. "I love you too." Freddie pulled her closer. "My girl, my choice, my partner. Your equal. Always." They fell asleep like that, tangled together, safe in the fortress they'd built from an accidental claim and turned into deliberate love. 2 years later, the wedding was small, immediate family, close associates, held at a private estate outside the city. Kelsey wore ivory lace, carrying white roses. Dylan walked her down the aisle, crying despite his best efforts to look tough. Freddie stood at the altar in a perfectly tailored tuxedo, looking at Kelsey like she was his entire world. When the officiant asked for vows, Freddie spoke first. "I claimed you before I knew what I was saying, but every day since, I've chosen you deliberately. I choose your strength, your intelligence, your heart. I choose your dreams and your fears and everything in between. I choose you, Kelsey. Forever." Kelsey's vows were simpler. "You made me visible when I was invisible. You gave me voice when I was silent. You chose me when I thought I was unchosen. And I choose you back. Every day. Forever." They kissed to applause. And Kelsey thought about that dinner. Charles's whispered comment. Freddie's instinctive response. The way one sentence had changed absolutely everything. "Still think it was accidental?" she whispered against his lips. "No. Freddie replied, smiling. I think it was fate disguised as impulse. Lucky for both of us. Lucky for me. I'm the one who got you. They walked back down the aisle hand in hand, invisible housekeeper and mafia boss, no longer. Just Kelsey and Freddie. Partners. Equals. Chosen. 18 months later. Kelsey stands in their penthouse, reviewing foundation documents. The Nugent Community Foundation, focused on healthcare access for underserved families, is her project. Freddie funds it. But Kelsey runs it. Dylan is thriving senior year of high school. College acceptance is rolling in. Still under discreet security but living normally. Freddie's empire is slowly legitimizing more legal businesses. Less violent enforcement, strategic exits from dangerous operations. It's not transformation overnight, but it's progress. And their relationship? It's real. Complicated. Built on truth instead of claims. Freddie comes home, loosens his tie, and finds Kelsey on the terrace. How was the foundation meeting? He asks, wrapping arms around her from behind. Productive. We're opening a second clinic. That's my girl. Kelsey turns in his arms, smiling. Your girl. I still can't believe that's how this started. Best accidental claim I ever made. It wasn't really accidental though, was it? Freddie's expression turned serious. No. I think part of me knew long before that dinner. I just needed Charles to make me admit it. They kiss as the sun sets over Manhattan, two people from different worlds who built something real from an impulsive sentence. And that's how an accidental claim became a real relationship and reformed a mafia empire. If you made it through this entire emotional journey without subscribing, I'm genuinely impressed by your restraint. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and drop a comment. Team Accidental Romance, or Team This Was Destiny All Along? Let me know. Also, should we do more mafia romance stories? I'll see you in the next video, and until then, may all your impulsive statements lead to true love. Bye.